Most people are taught that animals are either pets or factory products, but that is not how our ancestors survived. For thousands of years, certain backyard animals quietly provided food, income, labor, and security with very little land, feed, or cost. That knowledge was not lost because it stopped working. It was buried when modern systems took over. In this video, I am uncovering 5 forgotten backyard livestock that need no shelter, no heating, and no special care. And number 4 on this list builds its own bed using nothing but what nature gave it. If you believe animals are more than just pets, this is for you. I share forgotten animal systems like this every week, and subscribing means you will not miss the knowledge most people never learn. Let's unlock the truth. The Muscovy duck matters because it solves a quiet survival problem most families do not realize they have. A natural, affordable way to produce healthy, sustainable protein right in the backyard without expensive housing, complicated care schedules, or ongoing financial investment. Our ancestors understood this. Modern systems trained us to ignore it. The Muscovy duck is not a true duck. It belongs to a completely separate branch of waterfowl naturally evolved in the tropical lowlands of Central and South America. That origin explains why this bird thrives in conditions that stress most other poultry. It handles summer heat without panting and survives cold winters without a heated coop. It forages aggressively, converting insects, slugs, larvae, and yard waste into lean, healthy meat with very little purchased grain required. The reason this system worked was not technology. It worked because it matched real life, limited yard space, unpredictable seasons, and tight household budgets that most families understand well. Historically, all they needed was a small shaded corner of a yard, a low water basin for drinking and bathing, and open ground where the birds could move freely. No heated shelter, no specialized feeders, no expensive setup of any kind. The practice was simple. Families let the birds free range through daylight hours and returned to their resting corner naturally at dusk. No chasing, no herding, no complicated evening routines. Hens moved through the yard each day consuming insects and garden pests, providing free, natural pest control as a built-in benefit of simply letting them live as they were designed to. To sustain the system, families focused on one thing: allowing hens to follow their nesting instinct without interference. Muscovy hens are exceptional, self-directed mothers. When ready to lay, a hen selects her own nesting spot, builds her nest, lays her clutch, and sits the full incubation period entirely without human assistance. Ducklings hatch healthy and begin foraging within days. No incubator, no brooder lamp, no early veterinary care required under normal circumstances. Over time, this system provided more than healthy protein for the family table. It created genuine stability, a self-sustaining food source that reduced dependence on the grocery store and outside systems. Muscovy meat is among the leanest available from any backyard bird, free from the additives and hormones common in commercial poultry today. A productive flock also naturally reduces flies, mosquitoes, and crop-damaging insects across the property. A sustainable, life-changing benefit for any family managing a garden without chemical sprays. One detail most people miss is that Muscovy ducks are nearly silent. They do not quack. Males produce a low hiss and females a soft trill. This makes the Muscovy one of the only productive backyard livestock animals that can comfortably be raised in suburban neighborhoods, on small urban lots, and even in areas with noise ordinances. A rare and genuinely valuable advantage that quietly sets this bird apart from every other option on this list. The guinea fowl matters because it solves a quiet survival problem that costs families real money and real health risks every single year. Tick-borne illness, crop-damaging insects, and the constant threat of small predators moving undetected across an unprotected property. Our ancestors understood this. Modern systems trained us to ignore it. Guinea fowl are not a product of selective breeding or modern agricultural engineering. They evolved on the open savannas of West Africa, environments where survival depended entirely on alertness, flock coordination, and self-reliance. When brought to America generations ago, they became a quiet but essential part of life on rural properties across the country, not because farmers managed them carefully, but because guinea fowl managed themselves. They roost in trees by instinct each night, placing themselves safely beyond reach of ground predators without any human help. They patrol the land in tight groups through the day, consuming every tick, spider, small snake, and crop-damaging pest in their path. And when any threat appears, a stray dog, an unfamiliar animal, a hawk overhead, the entire flock raises an alarm call so loud and distinctive that it alerts everyone on the property within seconds. The reason this system worked was not technology. It worked because it matched real life. Open land, unpredictable threats, and the desire for natural security without ongoing cost. Historically, all they needed was open land, with a few trees or tall shrubs nearby for overnight roosting and a reliable source of fresh water. No coop required, no nightly lockup routine, no specialized housing or purchase feed beyond the first few weeks of life. The practice was simple. Families introduced a small starter flock onto the property, allowed the birds to explore and establish their own territory, and let them settle into their natural daily routine. No daily management needed. Once bonded to the land, guinea fowl claim it as their own and patrol it daily without instruction, without reward, and without any further effort from the family. To sustain the system, families relied on one thing: the guinea's natural flock behavior. These birds are intensely social. They stay together, move together, and protect each other. That collective vigilance kept the flock self-sufficient, kept disease pressure low through constant open land movement, and supported natural breeding without any artificial assistance. Over time, this system provided far more than property security. It protected family health in ways no commercial product can replicate naturally. Tick-borne illnesses, including Lyme disease, are among the most consistently misdiagnosed, life-disrupting conditions affecting people today. A productive flock provides chemical-free, sustainable protection for every family member spending time outdoors, including children and aging adults most at risk. One detail most people miss is just how effective guinea fowl are against snakes. A flock will chase, alarm call, and exhaust a snake before it can reach a garden, a chicken yard, or a back porch. Farmers across the rural South kept guinea fowl specifically for this reason for generations, making them a productive, self-sufficient natural defense that required nothing in return except the freedom to behave exactly as they were built to. The Coturnix quail matters because it solves a quiet survival problem that millions of families, and especially older adults on smaller properties and fixed incomes, have quietly accepted as simply impossible to solve. The problem is this: how do you raise your own healthy, sustainable protein when you have very little space, very little money, and no previous experience with backyard livestock? Our ancestors understood this. Modern systems trained us to ignore it. Coturnix quail are native to Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa. They have been raised by families, monasteries, and rural communities for over 4,000 years. In Japan, they were kept in small cages inside homes, not on farms, but inside living spaces, as a personal, productive family food source that fit within the most confined circumstances imaginable. Their ability to produce eggs and meat in limited conditions was not accidental. It was precisely why they were chosen generation after generation as the self-sufficient family bird for anyone without land, space, or a large budget to invest. The reason this system worked was not technology. It worked because it matched real life. Minimal space, low feed consumption, fast productive returns, and a natural hardiness that required almost no daily management to maintain. Historically, all they needed was a small wooden box, a wire-bottom cage, or a covered basket, and a daily handful of grain per bird. No barn, no heating lamp, no acreage, no elaborate setup of any kind. The practice was simple. Families kept a small group of birds, maintained a natural ratio of males to females, collected eggs daily, and rotated older birds into the food supply as younger birds matured. The birds laid consistently through most of the year, produced almost no noise, and stayed healthy in the simple conditions they were given, whether in a small outbuilding or tucked in a corner of a covered porch. To sustain the system, families relied on one natural behavior: the Coturnix's remarkably fast reproductive cycle. Young females begin laying eggs at approximately 6 weeks of age, compared to the 5 or 6 months required before a chicken produces her first egg. That speed meant a family could start from nothing and have a continuous, productive supply of fresh eggs within weeks, not months. Over time, this system provided more than a steady food supply. It provided something harder to put a price on: consistency. Quail eggs are dense in nutrition, rich in B12, iron, selenium, and healthy fats that support energy, immune function, and cognitive health. Nutrients that matter deeply for those who want to maintain their strength through natural whole food sources rather than supplements. In many traditional cultures, quail eggs were consumed daily as a restorative food for people recovering from illness or simply wanting to maintain their vitality through the later years of life. That reputation was not built on marketing. It was built on generations of consistent, life-changing results. One detail most people miss is just how naturally disease-resistant Coturnix quail are. They are not susceptible to many of the common respiratory and digestive illnesses that affect chickens and require ongoing veterinary attention and vaccination schedules. A healthy quail flock, raised in clean and simple conditions, rarely needs any medical intervention at all, keeping ongoing costs near zero and making them one of the most financially self-sufficient backyard birds any family can choose. If this kind of forgotten knowledge matters to you, give this video a like right now. It helps bring this to other families searching for real, sustainable alternatives. Tell me in the comments which of these first three had you heard of before, and which one genuinely surprised you. The rabbit matters because it solves one of the oldest and most persistent survival problems a family can face: how to maintain a continuous, healthy, sustainable protein source through every season of the year without dependence on a grocery store, a large property, or outside financial support. Our ancestors understood this. Modern systems trained us to ignore it. The rabbit quietly fed more families through the Great Depression, through wartime rationing, and through every hard winter in between than any other backyard livestock in recorded history. Not the rabbit of Easter baskets and children's books, but the heritage rabbit raised by ordinary families on small properties across this country for generations, valued precisely because it kept producing when nothing else could. The reason this system worked was not technology. It worked because it matched real life: small spaces, cold winters, limited budgets, and the irreplaceable need for a family-sustaining food source that kept going regardless of what was happening in the outside world. And there is one thing about this animal that sets it completely apart from everything else on this list. When a female rabbit, called a doe, is close to giving birth, she does not wait for a farmer to prepare her bedding. She builds it herself. She pulls soft fur from her own body, gathers dry grass and nearby natural material, and constructs a warm, insulated nest for her young, completely on her own, without instruction, without human assistance, and without fail every single time. Historically, all they needed was a simple raised wooden hutch built from scrap wood or reclaimed boards, hay, and whatever garden scraps and kitchen greens the family could spare. No electricity, no specialized purchased feed, no veterinary support under ordinary circumstances. The practice was simple. Families kept a small group of does and a single healthy male, allowed natural breeding and rotation, and harvested young rabbits for the table as litters matured. The doe handled everything after mating: building her nest, delivering her young, nursing them, and keeping them warm entirely without human help. No incubator, no brooder lamp, no special intervention required. To sustain the system, families focused on one thing: respecting the doe's natural rhythm. Does in good body condition bred willingly, nested reliably, and raised strong, healthy litters without outside input. The system was self-regulating because the animal was self-managing. Over time, this produced more than protein for the family table. Rabbit meat is higher in protein than beef, pork, or chicken, lower in fat, lower in cholesterol, and completely free from the additives and growth hormones standard in commercially raised meat today. For those managing heart health, maintaining a healthy weight, or simply choosing to eat cleaner food, rabbit meat is a life-changing, genuinely productive alternative to what sits in the grocery store. One detail most people miss is that rabbit manure is the only livestock manure that can be applied directly to a garden without composting first. It will not burn plant roots. It enriches soil immediately, improves drainage, and supports healthy, productive plant growth naturally. A rare dual benefit that makes every rabbit on the property a compounding investment in both family food and land health at the same time. The Nigerian dwarf goat matters because it solves a quiet survival problem that millions of families, especially older adults on fixed incomes and smaller suburban properties, have accepted as simply out of reach. The problem is dairy dependence. Milk, cheese, and butter are foundational to the American family diet. They are expensive, heavily processed, and increasingly difficult to source in a genuinely natural form. Most people have accepted that producing their own dairy requires significant land, a large barn, and the considerable expense of keeping a full-size cow. The Nigerian dwarf goat quietly proves that wrong. Our ancestors understood this. Modern systems trained us to ignore it. The Nigerian dwarf goat originates from the tropical lowlands of West Africa. It is not a miniature version of a larger breed. It is a naturally small, ancient breed, built for scarcity and environmental unpredictability. Heat did not break it. Cold did not stop it. Rough, brushy land that no other animal would productively use became its natural feeding ground. The reason this system worked was not technology. It worked because it matched real life. Small properties, warm and cold climates alike, limited budgets, and the basic family need for fresh, healthy, naturally produced dairy that a household could rely on without outside dependence. Historically, all they needed was a small fenced yard with access to brush, weeds, and low shrubs to browse, a simple three-sided wooden windbreak for shelter in harsh weather, and fresh water available daily. No large barn required, no expensive commercial feed beyond a modest daily supplement during peak milking. The practice was simple. Families kept a small group of does and one healthy buck, allowed natural seasonal breeding, and milked the does once or twice daily after kids were weaned. Does managed their own pregnancies, delivered their kids with minimal assistance in most cases, and settled quickly into a manageable daily milking routine that fit naturally into a morning and evening schedule, requiring no more daily effort than caring for a medium-sized dog. To sustain the system, families relied on one thing: the Nigerian dwarf's natural browsing behavior. Unlike cattle, goats browse rather than graze. They prefer woody shrubs, leafy branches, and weeds over grass. A small Nigerian dwarf group feeds itself largely on overgrown corners, brushy fence lines, and weedy areas that most property owners consider a costly maintenance problem. The goats improve the land while feeding themselves, keeping operational costs near zero, just as they always have. Over time, this system produced some of the richest, most nutritious milk available from any domestic animal. Nigerian dwarf milk is naturally high in butterfat, higher than the milk of any full-size dairy breed, making it exceptional for producing homemade cheese, butter, and natural soap. For those managing bone health, seeking natural calcium and healthy fats, or simply wanting to know exactly what is in their food, this is a life-changing, genuinely productive alternative to commercial dairy that fits within a backyard, not a farm. One detail most people miss is how well Nigerian dwarfs adapt to cold winters. Despite their West African origins, a simple unheated wooden shelter is sufficient protection through most of the country. Many keepers report healthy, productive does continuing to milk straight through January and February with no supplemental heat whatsoever, making this one of the most genuinely self-sufficient backyard dairy investments available to any family today, regardless of where they live. Here is something rarely said plainly, and it is worth sitting with. Every animal on this list was already complete before humans tried to improve it. The muscovy foraged for itself. The guinea patrolled without being asked. The coturnix laid eggs in a basket inside a home. The rabbit built its own bed and raised its own young. The Nigerian dwarf produced rich, healthy milk from brushy land no other animal would touch. None of them needed electricity. None needed imported grain, a climate-controlled building, or a financial investment that took years to recover. They needed space, water, and the freedom to do what they were already built to do. The moment modern agriculture replaced that simplicity with control, heated barns, manufactured feed, forced production cycles, and industrial breeding programs designed purely for speed and volume. These animals stopped being partners and started being products. And products break down. Products require maintenance. Products depend on systems that can fail. The natural animal, raised simply and allowed to follow its own instincts, does not break down. It self-regulates. It self-sustains. It keeps working through hard winters, uncertain seasons, and the kinds of economic disruptions that remind people what genuine self-sufficiency actually means in practice. Our ancestors did not keep these animals because they had no other choice. They kept them because they worked reliably, consistently, and without demanding more than what a family could reasonably provide. That is the core truth that exists to be protected. The more natural the system, the more resilient it becomes. You do not need a farm. You do not need acres of land, a large budget, or a background in agriculture. You need the right animal matched to your real life, your backyard, your season, your family's actual needs. Every single animal in today's video was proven by ordinary families in ordinary circumstances over hundreds of years of real daily life. Not by corporations, not by government programs, but by families who needed to be self-sufficient, stay healthy, and take care of their own without waiting for outside help. That knowledge still works today exactly the same way it worked for your grandparents' grandparents. So here is what I want you to do before this video ends. Pick one. Just one animal from this list that honestly fits your space and your life right now. Research what starting with a single healthy pair would actually require. Ask one question. Take one step. That is how forgotten systems come back to life. One family, one backyard, one small decision at a time. If these forgotten systems change the way you look at the potential of your own land, please subscribe and like this video. We are uncovering the history and the self-sufficiency that they tried to bury. Let's plant the seeds of a resilient future together. The next treasure from the past will be revealed soon.